All right, let's get a little boring. Why don't we? Let's talk about the quarterbacks I'm just not that interested in. Listen, I'm interested in every single quarterback. I find them all very fascinating. But there are 10 quarterbacks in particular that maybe aren't quite as exciting as some other ones. So these are the top 10 most boring starting quarterbacks in the NFL, according to me. Number 10 might be a surprise to some longtime viewers on this channel. I do have Derek Carr on this list. I think Derek Carr has been a very interesting quarterback at times, someone who I've done a lot of talk about at times, but at this point I feel like we kind of know who he is. I think there was a time when people really didn't give him enough credit, but I feel like that's turned around and people kind of do give him the credit he deserves of this very good quarterback, but maybe not the elite quarterback, but also someone who can get it done in the big moments. So I think it was also fascinating when he was with the Raiders, but now that he's gone to the Saints, I think, there's a bit of the intrigue has left. I guess you could argue it's gotten bigger or worse, because it is interesting to see how he'll do with the New Orleans Saints, but again, there's definitely intrigue. There's intrigue in every quarterback, but for me, I did have to put him at number 10 on this list. Number 9, Dak Prescott, who you're going to notice a trend with a lot of these quarterbacks is that they're not necessarily bad quarterbacks. They're just kind of these quarterbacks who are like, I feel like I know who you are. Like, I know what Dak Prescott is, who is this good quarterback who's probably never going to win a championship with his given contract. That's typically what we expect out of Dak Prescott. Now, the fact that he's a Cowboy makes it more interesting for sure, and the fact that he has had some real flashes of brilliance over the course of his career makes it more interesting, but it hasn't been consistent enough, so for me, he is on this list. Number 8, Daniel Jones, another guy who, again, kind of in the same vein, right? Solid quarterback. Jones has a little bit more intrigue than the people above him on this list due to the fact that I am fascinated in, like, can his career continue to grow? He is still relatively young, but the reality is he's someone who, again, I feel like I know what he does, what he can do well. There are legitimate positives in his game. Like, I don't hate him as a player, but given his contract, it just feels like he's going to kind of be in the same vein of a solid quarterback who, can throw underneath very well, who can, manage the pocket incredibly well, which was an issue at the beginning of his career. It's a good thing, good trait of his game now, but there's just not that much else there. Number 7, I have Ryan Tannehill, who knows? The Titans drafted Will Levis. Maybe they're going to move off of him at a certain point, but for now, he is the starting quarterback, and for Tannehill, he is someone who, again, there's things to like about Tannehill. He's, like a lot of these guys, he's not a bad quarterback. If you're a bad quarterback, you're not boring. Boring quarterbacks have to at least be good enough to not be boring. That's kind of how that works. But again, what are the Titans going to do with Tannehill? They didn't make the conference championship with him barely throwing the ball in those first 2 playoff games, although I thought he still did some nice things in those games in his limited playing time. But also, he wasn't getting paid a ton that year. Once they gave him the contract, it's, again, you're in that situation where it's like you're good enough to maybe win a Super Bowl if you're getting paid nothing, but you're not getting paid nothing. You're getting paid a good chunk of money. And so, again, you're probably just going to be good, but not great. Number 6, I do have McCorkle here, Mac Jones, who there's some intrigue with Mac Jones, I think. I think so. I don't think that he's a completely uninteresting quarterback. Can he return to year 1 Mac Jones instead of being year 2 Mac Jones? That's the intrigue. And I guess there is a potential for a Super Bowl with Mac Jones if the Patriots can build a championship contender while he's on his rookie deal. I haven't seen anything to make me believe he could be a top 5 quarterback in this league, but could he be a top 15 quarterback and then you build around him and you don't pay him a ton? Sure, that's absolutely possible, and that's where the intrigue comes from. But again, that's kind of what we're talking about with Jones, is can he be a top 16 quarterback instead of the bottom 5 quarterback he was last year? That's kind of the thing. And I think he'll probably be a solid quarterback, and at least he's not getting paid. And he plays for the Patriots, who are fascinating. But again, I'm not overly interested in him. But I also should mention, this goes without saying, I'm interested in all these guys. I like the NFL. I think you know that if if I have a YouTube channel about it. But if I have to pick 10, he's number 6. Number 5 is a guy I'm personally fascinated in, but, while this is my list, I also try to be a little bit objective when it comes to my team in particular. So Baker Mayfield, I put on this list as someone who, again, there's intrigue. He's, for one thing, incredible personality, electric personality, and that's always fascinating. When they win some games with Baker as a starter, it's going to be interesting. When they lose some games with Baker as a starter, it's going to be interesting. But are we really going to talk about, when we do the year-end recap and we talk about everything that happened that season, how much time are we going to really give Baker Mayfield? Probably not that much. He's here at 5. Number 4, Kirk has to make the list. He does. Of course, he does have to make this list relatively high up. Again, when we talk about the quarterbacks who are good quarterbacks but aren't elite quarterbacks and, get paid like elite quarterbacks, meaning that their team is kind of stuck being good but not elite, that's Kirk Cousins. That's on his Wikipedia page with Kirk Cousins. That's who he is. So it's like, you're not completely uninteresting. And I almost think because Cousins is kind of the face of those guys, that almost makes him more interesting in a way, but also I don't think that's totally fair to give him credit for that. So I'm putting him here at number 4 of, again, we know what he's going to get. I'm not bored when the games are on, but I'm also not like, oh my God, gotta watch Kirk Cousins. But at the same time, the Vikings, if they're good, I'm interested in watching them play. But again, kind of in that same range, which is why I put them at 4. Number 3, Jacoby Brissett for the Washington football team. I guess it could be Sam Howell. We haven't yet officially had, who's going to be the starter quite yet. So, okay, Brissett or Howell, but I'm putting Brissett there for now. I think it's more likely that he will get the majority of these starts. Again, Brissett's been solid. I thought Brissett was actually a pretty effective starting quarterback for Cleveland last year. I think Cleveland kind of tanked their chances of making the playoffs when they went away from Brissett and went on to Deshaun Watson, which I understand the logic behind. They weren't winning a Super Bowl. Let's get the guy who we were paying a ton of money in and get him some reps so he'll be ready for next year. But still, Brissett's a fine quarterback. He's not bad, but he's not great either. And I guess the one, thing is, could he continue to get better? Could we have a Geno Smith type situation with Brissett? Potentially, but as of right now, he's number 3. Number 2, another situation of like Garoppolo, he's fine. Garoppolo's fine. I'm not mad at Jimmy Garoppolo. He's had some good years. And one of the interesting things is, what will he do when he's away from the Kyle Shanahan system? I think he'll still be pretty solid. Like, listen, there's been plenty of quarterbacks who have not been successful in the Kyle Shanahan system and have not had the success that Garoppolo has had in the Kyle Shanahan system. Are Garoppolo's numbers heavily inflated due to that system? Of course, that goes without saying. But still, that's where the intrigue goes with him. Again, there's intrigue in all of these players. There absolutely is. But for me, that's why I have Garoppolo at 2. Finally, number 1 is kind of a two-parter here. Taylor Heinicke / Desmond Ridder. I'm not sure who's going to start for the Falcons. But man, this Falcons team is actually, I think, a really fascinating team. They just don't have the quarterback situation. I don't think Heinicke or Ridder really has it. I mean, Ridder, I don't know. He kind of showed a little bit of flashes towards the end of that 4-game stretch we saw him play. But he also had some really tough games as well. Again, he looked like a third-round rookie. Like, that's what he looked like. And I liked him out of college. I had him. I'm trying to remember now. I think I might have had him as an early second rounder is what I thought about him. So I like the selection and everything. But again, him and Heinicke, what's really the hope there? The odds are 98% chance that neither one of them is going to amount to much. And this Falcons team, which is very exciting, could really struggle. So that's kind of how, or at least at the quarterback position. So that's kind of how I view this. That's why I have those as my top 10 most boring starting quarterbacks at the NFL level, which again, everyone gets mad when I do this. Everyone loves the positive list and hates the negative list, right? But I think that they're, if I got to do one, I got to do the other too, right? But, again, I like all these quarterbacks. I'm fascinated by all these quarterbacks. And it's happened before where, I'm sure Geno Smith, if I did this list last year, would have made that list. And he ended up being one of the most fascinating quarterbacks of the year. So it's all just projection. But yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.